I'm very glad to be here and hope you have enjoyed the conference so far. Today, let's talk about something soft, non-technical, and maybe more like some ideas. Hope you can bring up some ideas and thoughts, inspirations. So first, let me introduce myself. My name is Anthony Fu, and hi. My girlfriend Ines showed me these cute avatars and also the illustration you're going to see later, thanks to her. So my name is Anthony Fu, and I'm the coding member of Nux, Vue, and Vite. I'm also the creator of Vue, Slide, Vitess, Uno CSS, and a few other open source projects. I'm currently working at Nux Lab on the framework team, and you can find me on social media with the link below. So I'm very appreciated with the chance I got that's allowed me to working on open source full time. I say thanks you for everyone that's giving the support and the opportunity and make this possible to me. It's always been my dream to work in open source and build things that can help people around the world. Attending awesome events like this and meeting so many great people in the community. I believe many of you like me are interested in doing open source. So today here, I'd like to share some of my thoughts and experience I got. Hope it can provide some inspiration for your own open source journey. Open source is a quite big topic, and I cannot really cover everything in one talk. So I'm trying to break it down and talk about different aspects of open source in each talk and make them a series. Today is going to be the part 2, the progressive path. The previous episode was about the set series, where I have already given in a few conferences. The topics was independent from today's, so no worry if you missed it. And in case you are interested, you can find the recordings on my website at tfu.me afterward. So before we dive into today's topic, let's discuss a bit about what we are expecting when working in open source. We know that most of the open source projects we use daily are tools. But have you ever think about the question that what defines a tool? The definition should be pretty straightforward and probably you already have the answers in your mind. In my interpretation, a tool should help you to get things done faster and or easier, at least one of them. I guess no one wants to use a tool that makes things slower or more complicated, right? So assume we want to build an open source project, a tool for people to use. What would you consider to justify if the tool you're going to build is a good one or not? Well, my answer is no. You cannot really tell without being verified by the community. Because there are so many factors that can affect if an open source project would work out or not. But also, I want to emphasize that in this context, good is a relative term that depends on your expectation. It's totally okay to build a tool that solves your own problem and call it a day. It's a great tool that works for you anyway. Actually, I have plenty of such tools, and I'm happy about them, even no one else is using them. But they got my job done at the end of the day, right? So let's revise our goal. Let's say we want to build a tool that can be beneficial not only to ourselves, but also for more people. And probably the community could also help us back to make the tools better for everyone. So the question becomes, how could we make a general and useful tool for people to use? I say every decision comes with a trade-off. When users consider if they want to use the tool, they would justify the cost and the benefit they could get from it. So here we have a balance, and if I'm going to put two most important factors on this balance, I'd pick the cost of learning and using the tool versus the cost of doing something oneself. In order to make users willing to use our tool, I'd say that the cost of learning should be much less than the cost of doing. This has been my little go-to formula to pre-evaluate if the idea I have is worthwhile. For example, let's say if you want to get a summary of 10 numbers, would you looking for a library to do it? Probably no, because we can do it with a single loop within like 2 lines of code. The cost of doing ourselves is too low that we don't even consider to getting a tool. But if we are going to do some calculators, I'm certainly going to find a library to do it for me, because I basically forgot everything I learned in my college. However, on the other hand, if the library we pick requires us to understand like 100 different configurations before being able to use them, we're probably going to find another library that might be easier, right? Thus we know when we're making tools, we have to think about those cases and find a good balance to make the tool worthwhile for the users. So we know that we should probably reduce the cost of using a tool to make it easier for people to pick up. From my point of view, the cost of the tool is composed by the following factor. The first one is the cost of discovering. It's about how commonly people would realize the need to find a tool for a certain task. It also means that the tool should be well described so people can easily get what the tool is for with 1 or 2 sentences for the best. And then we have the cost of learning. This is a particularly important one in my opinion. It's about how easy for people to understand and get started with the tool. As the tool is supposed to be used and to make the actual work easier, we certainly don't want the user to struggle on learning it for too long before they can benefit from it. And then we have the price, the cost of the tool itself. We're lucky that in open source, the majority of tools are free to use, thanks to every maintainer and contributor behind the scene to make so much awesome tools for everyone to use. And of course, on the other hand, if the tool is not free, this is definitely one of the factors that user would consider on choosing. And the last one is the cost of the adoption, like how to install and integrating it into one's project, how extendable the tool is for potential future needs, how migration would cost, etc. All those factors are introduced because the use of an external tool. In the end, we want to see the cost of the tool being paid off by the benefit it provides. We know that the complexity of the things might transfer from one place to the others, but not going to magically disappear. If we are going to solve a complex problem, it would be honestly hard to prevent a tool from getting complex too. For that, what I learned from the popular open source tool out there is something called progressive. So after this long intro, finally we are back to our topic today. What is progressive? I think progressive is pretty self-explaining. Well, here let's take a quick example with the illustration. So this is me. And I'm trying to get from the first floor to the second. And unfortunately, I hit a wall. The only way to get there is to jump through that wall, but I'm not a very sports person, so I'm not being able to jump that high. In this case, I might end up giving up and turning back around. It's a shame because I kind of failed to accomplish what I'm aiming for because it's too hard. So, from a progressive perspective, I think that's why stairs has been invented. It allows me to take multiple smaller steps to going upward and eventually achieve a certain goal that would be very hard to reach without it. So here, my interpretation to progressive is the stairs to make things easier to approach. Let's take some real-world examples and see how progressive works in our daily tools. If you go to the official Vue documentation vue.js.org, you will see the headline describe itself as the progressive JavaScript framework, and inside the docs, there's a statement mentioned that Vue is a framework that can grow with you and adapt with your need. I have heard people saying that's one of the main selling points of Vue is that Vue is very easy to learn and get started. And more than that, I also see Vue is awesome because it can be used in basically everywhere thanks to its progressive approach it takes. So Vue is progressive integrations. Vue provides multiple builds and offers many ways to use in different scenarios. Like you can use Vue with a single line of CDN import and enhance the web applications even in a static HTML file without any build tool. You can also view components as web components so it can be coexist with the other framework. Vice versa, you can also import web components within Vue applications. Then we have build tools. When we have a build tool set up, we can build Vue applications with Vue single file components that can co-locate necessary context inside a single file to build interactive single page application with ease. With tools like vPress, it allows you to have an efficient static site generation that ships minimal JavaScript while retains a great developer experience. With tools like Nux, we could have a server-side render with Vue to maximize the end user experience as well as having better SEO result. Native targeting is also possible via ironic or native scripts. And then we have the upcoming Vapor mode, which allows components to opt in a more performant vNode-less rendering engine to optimize even further in performance critical scenarios. So Vue's approach provides a progressive on the level of integrations, allows it to cover the need for different scenarios, even coexist with the other technologies. This means even we have a large code base using other stack but want to use Vue, you can still adopt some part of your app to use Vue first and gradually migrate each part slowly. As far as I know, for example, Wikimedia also picked Vue as their next framework and start to enhance it with Vue. In the end, the goal is to make our tool easy to adopt for different levels of needs so that we can serve a wider range of users. And then, let's talk about Nux. If you go to nux.com, you'll see it titled as the Intuitive Vue Framework. And in the docs, it mentioned that Nux's goal is to make the web development intuitive and performant with a great developer experience. That brings us to the next session, progressive onboarding. If you have ever tried Nux Starter template, you will find it's surprisingly easy to start with a Nux app. All you need is to have Nux installed as your dev dependency and create single Vue app components as app.vue. And that's it. That's all you need to get started with Nux. Even to someone who never tried Vue or Nux, it's probably not too hard to tell what it will renders and how to modify it, for example, as long as they got the basic idea of what is HTML. I think Nux intuitive here means that you can get started with a very minimal knowledge. While also, it should be fairly easy to enable more features as needed. Then let's talk about the other aspect of Nux, which Nux is good at, progressive on features. So we know that Nux works with a bare minimum starter, but also we know that real-world application won't be that simple. We need a lot of capability to accomplish various needs and also a way for us to organize the code in a manageable way. Nux is a framework that can grow with your need. To say, if you want some components to separate and use your logic, and in Nux you can just create a components folders you can create some components files under the components directory, and they will be auto-discovered across your project. And then if you have our apps need to have the capability of serving multiple pages and do the navigation, you can create a pages directory. And the components under it will be registered automatically to your router and based on their file name. And one of the great part is that until you do this, view routers and related code will never ship to your production app before you're actually using it. Say our app is now ready to go and we want to deploy the site to somewhere. And there are quite many deploy platforms that you can choose from. And usually you will need to learn a bit like how to deploy X frameworks on Y platform, etc. But with Nux, they will just work on all major hosting service with zero config, thanks to the automatically deployed preset powered by Nitron. It's common for a web app to have some server logic and API endpoint. In Nux, you can simply create function modules under server/API directory with a very similar convention like pages for routing. Nitron will deploy them to a serverless function based on the hosting service, and you have the end-to-end type safety on development. Talking about type safety, if you later learn TypeScript and want to use it with Nux, no problem at all. You can directly use them as Nux already understands it. For more features like progressive web apps, search engine optimizations, internationalizations, etc., Nux provides a rich module ecosystem that you can integrate them within a few clicks. And then finally, in case you're interested in more features Nux provide, we also build Nux Dev tool for you to inspect the internals and analyze your apps. All these features are opt-in, meaning that if you don't need a certain feature, you don't need to learn it at all. And once you find it useful later, you can always grab it back easily. To help with the feature discovery, we made Nux Dev tools as we just mentioned. For example, DevTool provides a modules tab that you can have a quick overview of how many modules you have installed with the links to their documentations or source code repo. And it also offers you a nice UI for you to search through the modules across the community. You can also ask DevTool to automatically download them and install for you within a single click. DevTool is built to help feature discovery and understanding to assist you to craft even more awesome applications. On top of documentation Nux site has, in the past months, we started to build an interactive tutorial playground. Some of you here might probably have watched my live streaming on building it. Thank you for working together with me, by the way. So Nux tutorial allows beginners to have a more linear step-by-step learning experience. So they can get started to playing Nux more easier even without the need to install or set up Nux. This is another case we are trying to get the progressive onboarding experience even smoother. In short, the point here is that we should grow with the users and not putting too much effort, too much stuff up front at once, making learning easier to start with and expose new concepts and powers progressively along the way. And then let's talk about one more example, the Vite. Vite title itself as the next generation front-end tool. I guess I'm pretty sure that no one would question that. In Vite philosophy section, the docs mention that Vite works closely with the projects in the ecosystem to minimize the regressions on each release. Vite is on major version 5 right now, and during the past 4 years, we basically keep the pace of releasing one major version per year to keep up the JavaScript ecosystem and the evolving standards. Some of you probably have been through the period that we do major releases. The last one with Vite 5 was released on November last year. So this is not a secret that Vite's major release has been very smooth migration paths, and we receive many comments mention about their successful migration cases. Project Monorepo that mentioned that they upgrade V2 to V3 with only bumping the version, everything keep working as is. During the release of V3, Killian even described this as the most painless full version upgrade of a build system ever on the release of V5. And many more comments like this. Thank you, and we are glad to hear those stories. If you are looking into Vite plugins you are using, you will find many of their package.jsons following a similar pattern like this. Vite appears in the peer dependencies with a version range from V5 all the way down to V2. This means that the plugin keeps working from V2 to V5 perfectly without the need to even drop the support for the previous Vite version. Not to mention that there is 3 years of time in between for such an active tools like Vite. Vite has put a lot of cares in it to make this possible. We care a lot about every change we made, and that we even work out the idea of ecosystem CI to run the test of major downstream framework on almost every pull request to make sure that they have the minimal impact to the ecosystem. This practice has been later adopted to Vue, Nuxt, and many other frameworks. And that brings up the other aspect of progressive unbreaking changes. I guess probably no one likes breaking changes, but somehow breaking changes are also quite important for the codebase to stay healthy and more maintainable in the long run. It helps us to fix the imperfectness of our previous design with the better context we have today. While it's hard to avoid introducing them, I believe maybe there will be some ways to make the transaction smoother and easier for people to adopt. Taking the experience we had in Vue and Vite, I see there's 2 major ways to achieve that. Here we bring back the graph we had before, referring to the jump between major version 1 and 2. One way to making breaking changes progressively is to do forward compatibility, and the other is backward compatibility. Let me explain. Forward compatibility is about to compatible with the version in the future. Like to say, if you know that's what the new feature you're going to have in the next breaking change, you could bring up the features back to the current version in a non-breaking way. In practice, we're often introducing flags like experimental or features for users to explicitly opt in those changes if they want to try new stuff, while the mainstream of the user will stay still on the current version without breakage. In Vue, we have the example of Vue Composition API plugin back in Vue 2, which provides the capability of using Vue 3's Composition API for Vue 2 apps before they can migrate to Vue 3. And later we have Vue 2.7, 2 years after Vue 3 has released, to have the Composition API support baked in and align more with Vue 3's behavior and the feature set. For Nuxt, we're introducing Nuxt Bridge to bridging the changes between Nuxt 2 and 3. Then let's talk a bit about backward compatibility, which you might heard more often. It's about how compatible it's about to be compatible with the previous version. A common practice is that we'll mark a certain feature as deprecated, and then we'll print the error, print the warnings upon usage, and eventually remove later in the next major version or so. This also means it's better to do smaller but a bit more frequent major release to make the transaction migration easier. Talking about examples, in Vue we have the compatibility build that use Vue 3 as the foundation, but with additional flags to simulate the legacy Vue 2 behavior that you can migrate once a feature. And next, we have Nuxt that allows module authors to build modules that would work for both Nuxt 2, Nuxt Bridge, and Nuxt 3, etc. From my understanding, I think the progressive or breaking change is the fundamentally allowing the coexistence. When making changes, we should provide a middle stage for people to take a rest on migration, allowing the coexist of both legacy and new, so that they can work. So the work can be done progressively and reduce the chance of breakage. So to recap today's topic, we have talked about the progressiveness on different aspects of building a tool. The first is about progressive onboarding, which makes tool easy to learn and to understand for more people to get started to benefit from the tool we build. And then we talk about progressive on integration for our tool to cover different scenarios and easy to adopt. Then we have the progressive on features. It's pretty common that we want to make our tools very powerful, but that could also be overwhelming for users to start with. So taking the progressive approach would allow us to start minimal and grow with the user. And then finally, we have progressive on breaking changes to provide a middle stage and make migrations easier step by step. There are much more aspects of progressiveness that we don't have time to talk about today. But my goal today is to bring this idea of progressive paths to you. It might not seem to be a very cool or unusual stuff that people would get excited about, but I think it plays a very important role in our daily software development. And we should think about it more often while building stuff. Not only for open source project, but it also can be beneficial also for your products or the way of doing stuff in general. To finish my talk in one sentence, I'd say to provide the progressive path is to enable users the capability of divide and conquer towards the goal they have. I hope you enjoy and find it useful. That's all for my talk. Thank you and happy hacking!